Chapter 131. Lianpe's spine also broke. Again. Both husband and wife have high paraplegia. There will never be a chance of recovery. Isaac stepped forward at this time and said respectfully, "Mr. Wade, the 300 heavy excavators I have mobilized have arrived. As long as you say something, we will immediately flatten the entire Chuanhao Building Materials Group." "Okay." Charlie nodded and said coldly, "Notify all the workers that the evacuation will be completed within 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, it will be all flattened here." Chuanhao and Lianpe were frightened. A lifetime of hard work, is this over? Everything is gone, and they can only be the living dead in the future. Without money, who will take care of them? Charlie doesn't care about them. He asked to turn on the fire alarm, and the entire factory immediately began to evacuate. Later, Charlie picked up Claire, who was already asleep, and asked several people in black to carry Chuanhao and Lianpe, who were unable to move. When everyone stepped out of the office building, the entire factory was almost evacuated. The workers thought that there was a fire, and all ran out as if to flee for their lives. At this time, 300 excavators have surrounded the factory. Thousands of people called by Isaac are in the periphery, and they are evacuating all the workers. Standing in the square, Charlie said to Chuanhao and Lianpe, "I want you to see with your own eyes how your hard work turns to ashes." After that, he immediately said to Isaac, "Let the excavator come in. Take it down for me." 300 excavators came in vigorously. The buckets and guns on the excavator made huge movements, like 300 heavy tanks, directly tore apart several workshops of the entire factory, and then flattened them, leaving a piece of rubble. Chuanhao and Lianpe were extremely desperate. This is all their hard work. These factories, brick by brick and beam by beam, are the result of their half-life's hard work. It can be said that the factory is like their child. Now, someone tore down their factory a little bit. This is simply torturing. At this moment, the two of them had absolutely no idea of survival. There is only one idea in the mind. It's death. However, it does not exist. Charlie will not give them a chance to die. Let them taste the pain for the rest of their lives. Later, Charlie said to the two of them, "I will spare you a dog's life, but you will remember me. Anyone who dares to reveal my identity to the outside world, I must kill his family without leaving a person. Not even a dog will be left." The two of them collapsed in fright and cried, "Mr. Wade, we dare not, Master. Kill us, we dare not reveal your identity, Master." Charlie nodded. Looking at the husband and wife who had become useless, and the Chuanhao Building Materials Group that had become ruins, the ill feeling in his heart was finally released. Afterward, he said to Isaac, "Let the helicopter come over and take us back." Isaac nodded immediately, and then respectfully asked, "Mr. Wade, I think the young lady may have been drugged. Should I send her to the hospital, or I will arrange a doctor to come home?" Charlie waved his hand, "No, just send us back." When he returned home, Claire still did not wake up. This is mainly because Charlie did not take back the spiritual energy in her body. Chapter 132. After returning home and putting her on the bed, he took the spell back from Claire's body. Immediately afterward, Claire woke up quietly. "Husband!" Claire opened her eyes, saw Charlie's face, and immediately assured him with ecstasy, and then she couldn't help crying. Charlie hurriedly comforted her, "It's okay, baby, don't be afraid, your husband brought you home." Home? Claire looked around now. Realizing that it was the bedroom of Charlie and herself, she couldn't help but ask, "Chuanhao didn't embarrass you, right?" "No," Charlie said, "Chuanhao and his wife have become paraplegic, and the entire Chuanhao Building Materials Group has also been razed to the ground. This means that many injustices will kill themselves." Claire was shocked. "How come? What is going on?" Charlie smiled faintly. "I called a few friends to help and snatched you out." As a result, the Chuanhao Building Materials Group, the entire office building, and the factory were all tofu projects. After they came out, one of their workshops exploded. The whole factory building was blown up, but unfortunately, you fell asleep at the time, otherwise, you could see the domino-like heroic scene. Claire couldn't believe it. A good factory, a workshop exploded, and it was razed to the ground? Yes. Charlie nodded. It's so powerful. I think they're condemned by heaven. After all, he immediately quietly sent a message to Isaac. Get the media, let them claim that Twenhow Building Materials Group caused a chain reaction because of the explosion in the workshop, and the factory collapsed. Isaac immediately replied, Don't worry, young master, getting on the news right away. A few minutes later, Claire was still trying her best to recall the details before the coma, and her mobile phone suddenly received a lot of news notifications. She glanced at the title, and she was stunned. The news headline is all about the Orris Hill Twenhow Building Materials Group's accident. The accident led to the collapse of the engineering workshop of the whole plant. Several people died. The owner Twenhow and his wife were also seriously injured. The doctor said that he was afraid it was paraplegia. Charlie said at this moment, Here, I didn't lie to you, did I? Only then did Claire believe it, and exclaimed, He was a really evil, and evil is rewarded. After speaking, she hurriedly asked Charlie, When you came in, the bad guy didn't do anything to me, right? Charlie nodded and said, Your clothes were intact when I went. It was Twenhow's wife who rushed to stop him from invading you. Claire shed 2 lines of tears. Charlie, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this. Charlie hurriedly said, Silly girl, what are you talking about? I won't blame you. It's all me, your husband, who didn't protect you well, and let this kind of bad guy come in and almost hurt you. Claire was so moved in her heart that she lightly hugged Charlie without saying a word. At this moment, she realized that Charlie had extremely deep feelings for her, which made her feel a great sense of happiness in her heart. One afternoon, Twenhow Building Materials Group was razed to the ground. The entire upper class of Orris Hill was in an uproar. Although the news is said to be an accident to the outside world, none of them will believe this kind of rhetoric. Everyone immediately began to speculate as to which big man did it. Think about it, almost no one in Orris Hill can do this. Who is the one? Everyone immediately began to think of many clues about Orris Hill recently. More than a dozen Rolls-Royces, more than 10 million in cash to buy jadeite, became a mysterious god-level rich man who became popular on YouTube. Acquired the Emgrand Group and threw $2 billion to build a 6-star hotel, the Emgrand chairman. The mysterious person who entrusted the Shangri-La Hanging Garden and held the wedding ceremony for 2 people in unprecedented history. And this big man who razed Twenhow Building Materials Group to the ground in one afternoon. All these clues all point to one person. The only possibility for these clues is the mysterious chairman of the Emgrand Group. Besides him, who else has this ability? This time, the identity of the chairman of Emgrand Group in Orris Hill has become even more unfathomable. Chapter 133. The saddest person when the Twenhow Building Materials Group is destroyed is Mrs. Wilson. Now the Wilson family's economy is a little stagnant, she also hopes that Claire can persuade Twenhow Building Materials Group to first release a batch of building materials on credit, which can be regarded as a disguised solution to the financial pressure. Unexpectedly, the entire Twenhow Building Materials Group was wiped out in one afternoon. Now, what Lady Wilson worries about most is the issue of funds. How to raise a sum of funds has become her greatest nightmare. Claire did not tell her grandmother what happened yesterday. With this experience, she secretly decided not to deal with other family matters in the future and concentrate on cooperating with the Emgrand Group. Other things, even if Grandma asks, she will never interfere. The next day, Claire recovered from a lot of mental and physical conditions, and couldn't wait to go to work. Charlie went out in the morning to go shopping for groceries, and when he returned home, he saw the old master, Jacob, sitting on the sofa with a depressed expression and sighed. He frowned and asked, "Dad, why are you in a bad mood? Who made you unhappy again? Could it be that you were cheated on buying antiques once again?" Jacob took a sip of jasmine tea and said angrily, "Don't mention antiques, tea, I'm angry when you mention it." "What?" Charlie couldn't help asking, "Are you really cheated?" Jacob said, "It's not because of the number of places in the auction of Jumbo Pavilion." Charlie asked in surprise, "What is Treasure Pavilion?" It is a clubhouse of the Orus Hill Cultural and Play Association. It often holds high-end auctions of culture and antiques. The auctions are all good things that are not available on the market. Every family has a place to participate. When Jacob spoke, a trace of fascination appeared on his face. But then, he said in a frustrated voice, "The Wilson family only got an invitation letter, and your grandma actually gave it to Harold. The kid Harold has never been in contact with antiques at all and doesn't understand anything. What are you going to do? Shame on it." Charlie knew that his father-in-law was very obsessed with antiques, and it must be very uncomfortable for him to lose this opportunity. So Charlie smiled and said, "Dad, if you really want to go, just ask the scalper to buy an invitation letter." Jacob waved his hand. The organizer of the Treasure Pavilion auction is the Song family. The Song family is the most powerful family in Orus Hill. I don't know how many people want it. How can it be bought? Charlie smiled. It turned out to be an auction organized by the Song family. Warnia, the eldest of the Song family, didn't she beg him to help identify antiques? Little things like invitation letters should be sold by saying hello to her. Thinking of this, Charlie said indifferently, "Some of the friends I know happen to be from this Orus Hill family. It shouldn't be difficult to get 2 invitation letters." Jacob didn't believe it, and shook his head and said, "Forget it, what kind of decent friends can you know? I think it's just some friends of friends. How can they be able to contact the Song family?" Charlie didn't say a word, and went straight downstairs, got through to Warnia's phone, and said, "Miss Song, can you help me get 2 invitation letters for the Treasure Pavilion auction?" Warnia said directly, "Mr. Charlie, are 2 enough? If there are not enough, I will give you a few more." Charlie took a look at the invitation letter and said, "Enough, but I will participate with the old master." Jacob is a literary fan. Claire and his mother-in-law are not interested at all. Even if they let them go, it would be a waste of time. Charlie knew the virtues of his father-in-law after the last Antique Street incident. He had to follow him and monitor him because he is afraid that his head would be dizzy and he would be pitted so that he had no pants left. By the way, he also wanted to go over and see if there were any rare elixir or treasures at the auction. Speaking of treasures, Charlie couldn't help but think of the stone that said peace and prosperity. After saving Elsa, the stone disappeared. He estimated that it was lost in the process of saving her. Afterward, he went back to search for it via the route of the day but did not find it. Fortunately, the aura of that stone has been absorbed by him, otherwise, he would really regret it. Since Jumbo Pavilion auctions are all precious treasures in the world, maybe he can gain something. Chapter 134. Until Claire came home from getting off work, Jacob still looked listless and couldn't even lift his energy after dinner. Charlie knew that he was sulking because of the auction invitation. At this time, Warnia just called and said, "Mr. Charlie, I'm sorry, I'm working in Haicheng this afternoon, and I'm downstairs at your house now, so I will hand you the invitation letter." Charlie hurriedly said, "I'll come down and get it." After speaking, he hurried out. Warnia sat downstairs in her Rolls-Royce, saw Charlie come out, got out of the car, and handed him 2 invitation letters. Charlie thanked her and returned home without chatting with her. Back home, the old master was still angry. Claire persuaded him, "Oh, Dad, don't be angry." Grandma gave the invitation letter to Harold, hoping that Harold could take this opportunity to get to know a few people in the upper class and engage in social relationships. Jacob sighed, "Hey, your grandma has been partial since she was a child. She didn't wait to see me, she loved your uncle and Harold. It's still like this until now. It's really annoying for me." Claire nodded helplessly. She also knew that Grandma was eccentric. Grandma felt that her father had nothing to do with her, and he didn't have much ability. Then she felt that Claire was a girl and couldn't inherit the family business, so she was a little bit more pampering towards Harold. Later, when she married Charlie, her grandmother had completely abandoned her family. At this time, Charlie walked to the front and handed 2 golden invitation letters to the old master, and said, "Dad, I have the invitation letter you want." "What?" Jacob jumped up like a spring on his butt. He snatched the invitation letter in Charlie's hand and hurriedly opened it and glanced at it. He was so excited that he couldn't speak. Claire next to him was also particularly surprised. She took the invitation letter in her father's hand and looked at it. It turned out to be an invitation letter from Jumbo Pavilion. Great! Charlie, you are really my good son-in-law. Jacob flushed with excitement and even said nothing. He stretched out his hand and patted Charlie's shoulder. My daughter married you, she really married the right person. Hey, just an invitation letter, it makes you so happy that your mind is not clear. Elaine cursed badly. Jacob clutched the invitation letter tightly and said to Elaine dissatisfiedly, what do you know, this is an invitation letter from Jumbo Pavilion. After speaking, he smiled and said to Charlie, sit down and eat. Then he greeted Claire, go, get the bottle of seal wine in my room, and I will have a couple of glasses with my good son-in-law tonight. Elaine looked at Jacob's happiness and gave Charlie a look of anger, no longer speaking. Claire was also very happy, but she had some doubts. After taking out the medicinal liquor, she sat down beside Charlie and bumped her elbow. Where did you get this invitation letter? She also inquired about the company in the afternoon and wanted to get an invitation letter for her dad, but when she asked, she realized that the invitation letter from Jumbo Pavilion was limited to every family. How did Charlie get it? Charlie smiled and said, I asked a friend what I wanted, and he also got 2 invitation letters, but he didn't want to go, so he gave it to me. Is there such a coincidence? Claire was dubious. Why haven't I heard you say that there is a friend with such good family conditions? What is his name? Charlie said lightly, his name is Cheen. I helped him in Antique Street last time. Dad knows. Jacob also nodded again and again. It's true that the Cheen also gave a jade bracelet to Charlie, said to be worth 5 or 6 million. Chapter 135. As soon as Elaine heard that he had given away a bracelet worth 5 or 6 million, her eyes flashed. Bracelet? Where is it? Show it to me. Charlie was wary in his heart and said, Mom, the bracelet is in the bedroom, but I plan to return this one. Return? Elaine couldn't help frowning. Is your brain sick? Return a 5 or 6 million things? Charlie said, I only did a small favor, and they gave such a valuable thing. It's not appropriate. What is appropriate and inappropriate? Elaine blurted out, if he dares to give it to us, he dares to ask for it. What about the bracelet? If you don't need it, I want it. Charlie knew that the mother-in-law didn't hold back any good thoughts. The bracelet was actually intended to be given to Claire by him, but he had not found a suitable reason to tell her, so he put it on hold. Unexpectedly, Jacob's mouth was quick enough, and it shook out all at once. It's not that Charlie is reluctant to bear a bracelet of several million. After all, he has nearly 10 billion in his card. What kind of bracelet he can't afford? But the key is that he feels that his mother-in-law really doesn't deserve to wear such precious things. With her shrewd temper and petty character, wearing a bracelet of 30,000 to 20,000 is worthy of her. However, the mother-in-law Elaine was not willing to miss the opportunity at this time. 5 or 6 million bracelets, how much face is it? So she urged again and again, where is the bracelet? Take it out and let me have a look. Claire next to him also knew that if this bracelet was really taken out and got into Mother's hand, it would not come back. So she also said, Mom, since it's something to be returned to others, let's not take it out to see it. In case it hits and falls, it's not easy to explain it to others. Return back? Elaine was anxious, stood up, and reprimanded, did your brain kick the donkey? Claire knew that her mother would definitely want to spoil her next time, so she resolutely said, Mom, don't talk about it, I have already discussed with Charlie, this is the case. Elaine also knew Claire's temper. If she insisted on giving it back, she couldn't stop it. Thinking of the millions worth thing to be returned, she immediately shed tears in distress, crying and said, it's okay to hire a son-in-law, and it's okay to hire a son-in-law. The girl and me are not in the same mind, I am just dead. Claire clipped a piece of meat to her mother and said, okay Mom, I will buy you a bracelet in the future. This is what you said. The day of the auction. Charlie had just left the room and came to the living room early in the morning. Jacob was already waiting impatiently and greeted him excitedly when he saw him. "Charlie, let's go quickly, don't be late." Knowing that he could go to the auction, Jacob didn't sleep well all night. He had already waited for Charlie here. As soon as he saw Charlie coming out, he lied to him and left. Treasure Pavilion is a group of cultural and recreational lovers in Aurus Hill City, a cultural and recreational association organized spontaneously. Its base camp is in a manor in a scenic suburb of the city. The president of the association has a background. It is said that personality is a real estate giant in the province who loves culture and entertainment. He took the lead in investing 100 million and gathered a group of business people who also love cultural and entertainment items to form the Jumbo Pavilion. Charlie and Jacob arrived at the gate of Jumbo Manor, parked the car, got out of the car, and looked around. The surrounding scenery is really chic and quiet, with a sense of extravagance, and all the cars parked outside are luxury cars, and the worst are Porsches. The 5 Series BMW that Charlie drove was like a pheasant that fell into a phoenix den, especially dazzling. When the old master got out of the car, he had to walk inside.